Welcome back everyone. Hi, if you're new, I'm Tori and today we are going to be doing the mid-year freak out tag. You all know how this goes. I got 13 questions here. We're going to talk about the year so far, freak out together, and unlike previous years, I'm genuinely freaking out because there are so many books that I still want to read before the end of the year. It has been a really good reading year so far. I've read 32 books. I had a couple of rough months in there around like February, March that I wasn't too excited about, but overall it's been a solid reading year and I found some great books that I've just fallen in love with so far this year. That being said, I am really counting on the second half of this year to step up because I have a top, like if I had to make my best books of the year list right now, I think I have a solid top 5 and I could round out the bottom half of the list if I was really desperate. But yeah, second half of the year, got some work to do. So we are gonna get into it together. You all know how these questions go. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let's get started. Question 1 is, what is the best book you've read so far in 2023? This is going to be a recent answer because I just finished this book not that long ago, but that is How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. This was amazing. I feel like I'm still a little speechless when I try to talk about this book because it is just, it's so good. It is beautiful. It's heartbreaking. I love this so much. This book had been on my radar for a while, but it wasn't until one of my book friends, Evan, who I will link down below, he was talking about this book. I saw his review and just the way that he speaks about it, I was like, well, now I gotta go out and actually buy it and read it. I read this book in a few days and just came out of it just completely stunned. This was an incredible read, you guys. The book starts in 2030 and this father goes to the Arctic Circle to finish his late daughter's research. And while he's there, this plague is released from the ice. And from there, the book is broken up into short stories where we're following a variety of characters in different phases of this plague. And it spans across many, many years. But even though the plague is kind of the foundation of what this book is about, the stories that we're experiencing are so human. You know, we're following characters who are just dealing with grief. We see characters who have strained relationships, marriages, parental, child relationships. So it's just a variety of those very human situations going on throughout this book. And we also see the types of industries that are born out of necessity because of this plague that's spreading around the world. It's a pretty large cast of characters because of all the different stories that we're getting. So you're not going to be, you know, really connecting to one character in particular, but I think Sequoia Nagamatsu just does an incredible job of connecting you to the experience that that character is going through, and that feeling of loss and hope and heartbreak that just permeates throughout the entire story is just unforgettable. And this entire book to me just speaks to humanity's resilience in the face of just some of the most difficult times and our desire to want to get out there and explore the universe. It's just so good. I love this book. It's so good. Go read this. So even though this is the best book I've read so far this year, like I said, there is some competition on the way for the second half of the year because there are books on my TBR that I just know, I already know that I'm gonna love. And one book in particular that comes out in July that we're gonna get to that I already know that I'm just gonna love it. So yeah, this is amazing. The best book of the year so far. I can't wait to see how it stacks up against, you know, July through December. Question 2 is, what's the best sequel you've read so far? This is gonna go to The Tyranny of Faith by Richard Swan. I think I said this before, but Tyranny of Faith is one of my favorite sequels. In terms of strong sequels, I put it up there with something like Jade War and Golden Sun as being just really amazing follow-ups to the first book. I cannot wait to see what Richard Swan is going to do to wrap up this trilogy in February, so I will be on the edge of my seat for that. But as of right now, Tyranny was incredible. And if you all are still on the fence about reading The Justice of Kings, please just go do it. It is seriously, it's one of the best fantasy books, in my opinion, of the last couple of years. I cannot recommend that book enough. Question 3 is, what's a new release you haven't read yet but want to? I have a couple for this one. The first is The Will of the Many by James Islington. I was actually kind of debating whether or not I should go into this book first because I do have the first book in, what is it, the Lycanius trilogy on my shelf. So I wanted to kind of experience that first, but if I do end up getting to The Will of the Many before that, then that's totally fine. But this is one I really want to get to. And also, I still want to read The Ferryman by Justin Cronin. This has just been sitting on my Kindle, so I do want to get to that too. But those are probably like the top 2 right now. The next question is, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? Do I even need to say it? Like, it's Lightbringer. It's not even just my most anticipated release for the second half of the year. This is my most anticipated release of 2023 period. You guys, I'm still reading Dark Age. I've been reading this book forever, but I have some good news. I am almost done. Dark Age has truly been one of the most intense reading experiences that I can recall. I think I have a lot of anxiety about getting to the end of this book. This is one I feel like if I had finished it before filming the mid-year freakout tag, could have been, you know, what is your best book of the year so far, but not finished just yet, but it's coming up really soon. But yeah, Lightbringer, I don't know what else to say. This is it. This is the release of the year for me. Question 5 is, what is your biggest disappointment of the year so far? I'm not sure I have, because this is different than like, what's the worst book you've read this year? A book that disappointed me that I feel like I've talked about a few times already was Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. I've said this before. The book wasn't bad by any means, and I did like it, but it definitely wasn't what I was hoping a Ninth House sequel would be. Another book that was a disappointment, but for a completely different reason, because I actually did not like this book, and that's The Blood Gift by Annie Davenport, which is the final book in the Blood Trials duology, or the Blood Gift duology. Last year I read book 1, The Blood Trials, and I really enjoyed it. I liked how brutal it was. I liked so many aspects of the world building, and the story itself was just really engaging. But The Blood Gift, everything just felt like it took a pretty significant dip. The pacing, the expansion of the world felt a little more clunky. Some aspects of the plot felt a little bit more clunky. The writing, I think, took the most noticeable hit. Some of the prose and some of the dialogue in this book is just really awkward. And I'm not the prose police. This is not the prose police channel, but there were just some really, I said this about Fourth Wing, just some really distracting like passages and trains of thought. After a while, I was really getting exhausted with her relationship to Reed. I was just like, we gotta wrap this up. Next question is, what is the biggest surprise? And for this one, I'm gonna say the Wayward Pines trilogy by Blake Crouch. I loved this trilogy. I had such an amazing time reading it. I knew I was gonna enjoy it, but I just was not expecting all of the twists and turns and action, and just overall how invested I was getting into the series after a while. I keep raving about Pines. It's such a twisted story, so I highly recommend it. The very last page of the third book is just amazing, so I'll leave it at that. Question 7 is, who is your new favorite author? And this is either a debut author or a new to you author in 2023. For this one, I'm going with Jen Lyons. The Rune of Kings. This is the other book. If I had to make my like top 5 best books of 2023 right now, The Rune of Kings would be in the top 5. This was amazing. I'm still gonna be continuing on with the series before 2023 is over. I do want to get to book 2 soon, but just this first book alone, truly this is probably one of the most unique books I've read in a very long time, just in terms of the structure, the way that the story is told, the way that the history is presented to us. I loved everything about The Rune of Kings. It was such an incredible read. You definitely got to be prepared though and put in some work. Jen Lyons, she's not going to hold your hand throughout this book, which I really appreciated. Like usual, we can skip question 8, which is, who is your newest fictional crush? I don't have one, so moving on. Question 9 is, who is your new favorite character? This is gonna go to Amina Al-Sarafi from The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi. This is the other one that would be in the top 5 best books of the year so far. This is a book I also could have put in what is your biggest surprise, because I knew that I was gonna like this book, but just had no clue that I would love it as much as I do. I love this book. I loved everything about this book. The historical setting, the characters. Shannon Chakraborty, I think, is just so good at creating just this amazing adventure narrative, bringing things to life in a way that they just feel so vivid while you're reading it. I love this book. This is probably the most fun that I've had with a book in 2023. Question 10 is a book that made you cry. I'm not officially done with it yet, but I have to include it somewhere. Dark Age. I've cried so many times reading Dark Age. One time I just cried out of pure shock. Like, I could not believe what was happening, and tears were on the page before I knew what was happening. So Dark Age has really been putting me through the ringer. It is one of the most brutal reading experiences I think I've ever had. So question 11 is a book that made you happy. For this one, I'm gonna say The Stars Undying by Emery Robin. And not because it's like some joyful tale, because it's just very political throughout the entire book. It's a retelling of, or like kind of inspired by the lives of Cleopatra, Julius Caesar, and Mark Antony. So not really a ton of happy stuff going on, but just the way that I felt after reading that book, I just sat there and I was like, this was amazing. In terms of that, the book made me happy. This is great. It really is. This is a slow burner, really character-driven sci-fi novel. And even though Emery Robin does have this, big world that's painted throughout the story, the focus of it is really on these 3 characters and the way that they interact, the way that they manipulate each other, the way that they scheme with each other. It if that sounds interesting, I think this book is really going to work for you. But I would say by like page 75, if you're like, this is the most boring thing I've ever read, you might want to put it down. But yeah, I really love this and it made me happy for that reason. So question 12 is, what is the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received? I just recently bought Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I've seen this book all over the place, people holding it up and everything. And even just seeing it online, I was thinking, oh my God, that's such a beautiful cover. Seeing it in person, different experience. This book is gorgeous. I don't have my books like front facing anymore on the shelves like I used to a long time ago. But if I did, Divine Rivals would be front and center because the book is just, it's stunning. And dreaded question 13 is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? What don't I need to read by the end of the year? That might be a shorter answer. Just so much. I think that's why I am freaking out a little bit, because there's so much to wrap up. I want to start the Stormlight Archive. I want to read the second book in the Rook and Rose. I want to go back to old series that I haven't touched in a couple of years. There's just so much. Sinlin Ascends, The Grace of Kings. I'm reading Foundry Side. I want to wrap that up. There's so many books, so little time, but I have so much faith in the second half of the year that it's gonna be a lot of bangers. So yeah. That's it. So that is it for me, you guys. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. And also, I did not mean to be gone this long. I didn't mean to be gone at all. But the days turn into weeks, weeks turn into a month, and here we are. But I'm back. We're gonna get back on track and I have a lot to share with you. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.